and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignot. This is part of my 29 Days of Magic series where I get to interview an amazing Black woman every single day throughout Black History Month. And today I am absolutely delighted to have Deborah Riley Draper, who is a filmmaker, writer, and director, on the podcast with me. It's probably going to be a great conversation. Take a listen. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, how are you?
Just interviewing folks, in between meetings here, there, and everywhere.
I love it.
So delighted to have you on the podcast. And so as we're chatting, first question, always the same. Answer is always amazing. I'm sure yours would be no different. So jumping right in, Deborah, what was your first job?
My very first job in life was a hostess at Chuck E. Cheese. So I
love it.
Yes. And it makes sense. It was an entertainment job. And, if you know anything about Chuck E. Cheese, the technology of the animatronics would be the technology that would become the basis of the technology you would see in Pixar films. So right away, I was drawn to entertainment, and I was drawn to that intersection of entertainment and technology and storytelling. So that was my first job.
Wow. That, it's funny. Again, all these episodes later, it's still always amazing to me how anytime, whatever first job people select from the myriad of things they've done, as the one they talk about in the podcast, it always correlates to what they do now in some way, shape, or form. And so this is another perfect correlation. Was there anything that you remember from Chuck E. Cheese you're like, wow, that was weird?
Well, you know what? Well, first of all, the animatronics were weird just in general, because I was like, wow, what exactly is the technology that's making them sing and dance and move? And then at the same time, I had these 4 and 5-year-olds jumping literally on my back and on my head during their pizza birthday parties because they were so amped up on all of the sugar. So it really was kind of this early training for becoming a director, right? And being able to keep the set organized on schedule and making sure everything moves smoothly and no one gets hurt. That's what I remember the most.
It comes in handy to your job today.
It comes in handy to keep all of the people out of the jumpy ball and no one gets hurt.
Nobody gets hurt. Most importantly.
No one gets hurt.
So we go from Chuck E. Cheese to where you are now. What was that journey like?
I think this idea of storytelling and this idea of using my gifts and creativity, that helped move me along. I stopped along the way after college in advertising. So I worked on the account side. I worked for years at BBDO. I worked at Ogilvy. So really developing those advertising storytelling chops and developing how you reach people, how you touch people, how you connect with people. I think that experience, and that was 14 years of my life, that experience helped me become a better storyteller. So once I decided to make my first film, I was actually at BBDO and I was driving to work and I was listening to the radio, and NPR had this story that this researcher had studied Black women and said Black women were the ugliest women in the world. And that was his research. And he had all of this data, empirical data. He'd gone around the world measuring faces and looking at symmetry. And this was his conclusion. Black women were the ugliest women in the world. So after I almost wrecked my car, I parked in the garage and I was like, you know what? There needs to be more voices in storytelling right now. And that day I decided to become a filmmaker. And the story I told, the very first story, was called Versailles 73, a documentary. Won a lot of awards. It aired on the Logo channel. That's the first place it played after RuPaul's Drag Race. And it was about these beautiful, incredible Black women who changed the trajectory of American pret-a-porter in Paris in 1973, literally 50 years ago, November 28th, 1973. So their stories, these 12 women, helped usher in the careers of Halston, Oscar de la Renta, Stephen Burrows, Anne Klein, and Bill Blass. And their story was not told. And I became the first person to literally tell that story in cinema. That's how I got here.
So I just realized you and I have crossed paths before.
Okay.
So when
I'd love to know, because now I'm curious.
The Versailles documentary, and how it helped, like, it was like the most incredible thing. So, in a weird twist of fate, my mentor and the woman I worked for a long time fresh out of college was a Halstonette named Chris Royer.
Oh my God, Chris! I love Chris. Mm-hmm.
He is family. Like, I interned with her when I was 20. And then I remember working on this project like, on the side, because I continue to like always help her out on stuff years after I got out of college. Because she's like my mentor and the reason I had my own business. And so, like, I remember when this project came up and I helped her with a bunch of this. So I was like, wait a second.
Yes, we premiered at the Paris Theater in New York and had the reception. This was all during New York Fashion Week, and we had the reception in the Audrey Hepburn Room at Tiffany's. This was 2012, September of 2012, New York Fashion Week. It opened in New York that night, and it was the most important night in my film career because it was my very first film. 600 or so people in the audience, and it was about fashion, right? And you had all these former Halstonettes in there. Pat Cleveland is in the film. Obviously, Alva Chen's in the film. Beth Ann Hardison, Kadeem Hardison's mom is in the film.
Bjornson, the whole nine. Oh yeah, I know the whole story.
Fantastic. So yeah, that's how I'm here.
That is amazing. I just remember being like floored by this story and how like it was, again, Black women leading the way to make it all come to life. Oh, that's phenomenal. See, this is why I deliberately don't like do any homework because I just want to like have a conversation. so I have genuinely happy responses. But yeah, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I remember being like, wow. And I remember being like saying to Chris, like, I'm so glad it's a Black woman telling this story.
Thank you. Thank you. It was so phenomenal to learn the importance of these women in the history of fashion in 7th Avenue, New York fashion. They did it. They literally brought down the house at the Chateau de Versailles and literally helped usher in these careers of these fashion icons that we know. And that show would not have existed without, Norma Jean Darden and, Jennifer and all of these incredible Black women. And it was a story I had to tell. And besides, I mean, I got to shoot in New York and Paris. Who's going to pass that up? It was fantastic.
Nobody.
Yeah. And I financed that film myself.
Oh, wow.
Well, who's going to finance a first-time filmmaker? I'd never made a film before, so I bet on myself.
And what was the result?
The result was fantastic. The result was, the very first result was I screened it at the Marché du Film at the Cannes Film Festival, and the Paris bureau chief wrote a 4-page review of the film positive. Then the New York Times wrote a review of the film positive. Then the then unscripted doc person at Viacom's logo saw the film when it was in theaters and acquired it. And it's still to this. It's on TV right now, in streaming. So you can watch it in this 50th anniversary year of the literal event itself. So I'm very proud to be able to sit here and know that something I created is being watched and being talked about right now because it's the 50th anniversary of Versailles, the event back in Paris. So I'm pleased and honored.
Oh, that's so amazing. Yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, could you give like the 30-second overview of what it was?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Chateau de Versailles was in disrepair. It needed about $60 million in repair. So this American fashion publicist Eleanor Lambert had an idea. She said, why don't we, to raise money, put 5 French designers against 5 American designers in the ultimate fashion show ever? So on November 28th, 1973, tickets were $250 a pop. And that's pretty pricey back 50 years ago. All the dukes and duchesses and all the it girls and all the fashion people from around the world came in all their jewels to the Chateau de Versailles and watched the French, who had this amazingly long 2.5-hour fashion presentation. There was Dior, Givenchy, Ungaro, all of the amazing lines of haute couture. And then here comes the Americans. They didn't really have rehearsal time. They didn't really have a set. So they played some disco music, put on the clothes, and these Black women walked the kind of walk that literally blew the roof off the chateau. And the Americans were crowned the victors that night. So Halston and Stephen Burrows and Bill Blass and Anne Klein, whose intern that day was Donna Karan, and Bill Blass became the people that we know them as today.
Thank you for sharing this, because I said it's one of my favorite fashion stories. So, obviously I've worked on and off for Chris for years. And so I got to hear all of her Holston stories, from the China trip to Versailles. And it was so fascinating to me, because obviously I love fashion. Yeah. But the side, it's like, I don't think people realize like there had never been anything like this before. So think of it as like the first, like this was your showdown.
It was a fashion cat fight of the ages, and certainly, it was like the French Revolution, and the Americans are coming, and it's like, who's going to be the very best? And there was the simplicity of this American attitude, this American fashion, and everything about it was modern and now and young. And those girls walked, and those designers showcased, and that led to what we know as American fashion becoming global, and our aesthetic being, widely recognized and accepted.
It completely changed the course of fashion in the U.S. in terms of what sportswear was, what couture could be, the fabrics. I remember, Joe Eula made a whole sketch that it got drawn as part of the whole thing. Like, oh my gosh, it's bringing back so many memories.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's that's the thing I love about storytelling, because there's so many of these.
There's so many, and these women deserved, all of the women deserve to be recognized for their contribution to what we know as this gazillion-dollar American fashion industry. Because in 1973, no one was checking for American fashion designers. Everyone wanted all things European and French and haute couture, and that was it. Everyone turned their nose down at American fashion, like it's all denim and polyester, right? So this was this moment where there was a transformation in the audience's perception of what could be fashion and what wasn't, that could be, and what it became, right, in that instance. And it's
fascinating. It's interesting that this is the 50th year of Versailles, and it's also the 50th year of hip hop.
There's 23 was a good year.
23 is a really good year, apparently.
Yes.
Before my time.
Yes.
But yes,
it was a good year of things changing, right? So the 70s fashion and music really started to take a departure from what had been historically the thing that people listened to, or the thing that people wear. There became a freedom and an experimentation in 1973 that we all get to benefit from. All of the kids that grew up in the 80s and the 90s, we got to benefit from what they were thinking and what they were doing, and shedding some of those old ideas, and making space for new ideas like hip hop, like, American street fashion.
Unbelievable. It's such a fascinating time, and I'm continuing to uncover so many unique stories of the players who were there and again, from hip hop to fashion, and it's just underneath it all, Black women. So, just like
100%. Because when you think about even hip hop in that moment, you think of like Sylvia Robinson, right, with Sugar Hill Records. That is a pivotal moment in the history of hip hop.
so much of that. And I think, it's been really cool as part of like doing 29 days. I've met so many really amazing women who've been had different parts of the universe with fashion and music within the last 50 years of hip hop. And you just see the crossover is just like so beautifully intertwined with the two sectors, but you're like, oh, they're so separate. Like, nope, fashion, hip hop, all play well together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that expression, right? It's that I need to express myself in what I say, whether it's poetry, hip hop, rap, whether it's the fashion, how I dress, my hair. All of these things contribute to me really saying I want autonomy. And that's one of the reasons I became a filmmaker, is because I wanted to have autonomy over my thoughts, over my voice, over what I saw as beautiful, over what I determined was important and what I thought should be amplified or brought to the screen. There's so much power and freedom in that choice, in choosing a story that you're going to spend a couple years of your life dedicated to bringing forth. And when you have that choice and when you make that choice, that work becomes so important to you.
So very, very true. So you bet on yourself back in 2012 to become a filmmaker. I'm sure there are lots of folks out there who are listening going like, what do I even do to begin to become a filmmaker? Can you take us back and like what were those initial steps that you took to like, you know what, I'm gonna go out and bet on me.
Well, the first thing I decided to do was I took a bunch of additional classes and I read a ton of books and I watched a ton of films and I really immersed myself in this kind of autodidactic way to become familiar with what it is to really tell a story, what it is to dig into something in a way that's beyond your interest that will become interesting to other people. So I enrolled in a ton of classes, and then the next thing I decided was, who are the people that I wanted to go on this ride with me that would support me, and that I would not hear you are a first time filmmaker. Because I wasn't a first time storyteller, because the first time I told a story was, when I was 5 years old in Vacation Bible School, when they said, hey, everyone make up a story. And I made up this whole play and made everyone like participate in it. So creating this environment where you bring creative thinkers together to tell a story was something I was familiar with from being a child. So picking the right people, assigning the right roles, and figuring out what type of creative leader I was going to be, that was my first step. And for me as a creative leader, research is fundamental to how I approach anything. So I went to town on all the players, on all the 10 designers, on the Rothschilds who, financed it, on the Pompadours, all of the people who played a role in this. I became intimately familiar with them as people, with them as players and actors in this particular event, before, during, and after, so I could get a full picture of what actually transpired, how it even began, and what was the impact. So the research, the gaining of knowledge and skills, that was the first step. The energy and the enthusiasm and the drive and the ambition was already there.
Amazing. So post your first film, what are you working on these days?
Right this second, I am in post-production on A&E's James Brown 4-part docuseries. So I'm directing that docuseries, and I'm super excited about that. And that is the centerpiece of my focus this year.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Yeah. James
Um,
Brown will be
I,
90 years old. This would have been 90 years old this year. And so this 4-part docuseries, 4 episodes, will air later this year. So excited about that. And I'm writing a script in my downtime, which is limited, but I'm getting those pages in.
Oh, that is incredible. So this will have to come out this summer. Fantastic. Oh my goodness. I love James Brown. I love the Chadwick's version of his life. So I'm super excited about this docuseries. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Um, uh, so, okay, I'm sure you had lots of career up and down challenges. Talk to me about a time when you're like, "There's no way this is gonna work," and then it did.
Oh my gosh, that was every day in my advertising career. Every day. I remember early, I had this idea that was part of a campaign at a particular agency that I worked for a particular soft drink brand. And the creative director was like, yeah, no, we're not going to be, you're not a writer. You're on the account team. Thank you, but no, thank you for this particular idea. And I was defeated for a couple of days. And then I was like, yeah, no, this is a great idea. Thank you very much. And I'm the account person. And I'm going to tell the client it's a great idea. And I did. And the client loved it. And we shot it. And ended up being one of the great commercials within that campaign that was directed by Francis Lawrence. And it was just fantastic. And it still holds to this day in terms of being a great commercial. And I remember it so fondly because in that time, American Idol was really this big show, and it aired during American Idol. And I was like, Mom, my commercial's running on Idol. And
Oh my God.
so it went from, yeah, that's pretty much a dumb idea, Deb, to it's on American Idol during the commercial break. So that just goes to show you that you have to believe in not just yourself, but in your idea, and be able to demonstrate the validity of that. And I was able to explain and demonstrate why this was going to work in a way that brand person understood. You're right, this is going to work, and it did. So being able to understand problems and find great creative solutions is really something that I think is my love language.
Love that. Oh my gosh. That's just, oh, Deborah, you're so amazing. Um, I just love what you've been able to do and build. So, okay, you've got to have a ton going on, and you have to figure out some little time for Deborah. So, what does Deborah do for self care?
The one thing I use the focus on my iPhone, and I'm do not disturb from 10:30 to 8:30. like
Really? That works for you? I hate focus. It drives me nuts.
I don't want to hear my phone buzz, bing, ring, ding, or anything between that time. I started doing that last year, and it's so great because I get a lot of texts and emails, and I don't want to hear about it. I'll deal with it in the morning, because it's not gonna at if something's happening at 1 a.m., it's just gonna have to happen. Um, there's nothing I'm doing that is going to change the world in that way at 1 a.m. If it's like, you know what, if someone can't make their interview, they can't make it. That's fine. We'll find a replacement, or we won't.
You are absolutely right.
I had to grow there
I,
because I would be panicked and frantic and, oh my God, the phone is ringing, and you can't get a good night's sleep. And if you're not getting a good night's sleep, you're just not going to be as good. It's just that simple. I'm working on drinking more water, Laura. That's
Same.
that's kind of my 2023 goal. Drink more water. So I'm working on that. I'm not as effective in that. And I'm also working on more quiet time and more walking time. Those are the things that I know for me really work. I'm an only child. So what I recognize in myself is that I've spent so much of the first 18 years of my life alone or just with my mother. So I don't like a lot of noise, and I don't like a lot of people, and I like being alone. There's such joy and restoration in that time. And so when people are crowding into my time, it makes me grumpy. So being able to have that time to myself is critically important.
I love that. The walking time and the me time are things I try very hard to get. Because similar to you, I'm in the people business where people are always asking me for something all day
They
long.
and tugging on you.
And I just need to leave me alone, please. I just want to be by myself. So I'm the youngest of three, but I have older brothers so that they're 7, 8 years older than me. And so in a way, I was kind of like the only child because I'm the only girl. But I'm the only one who grew up here in the US. And so, like, similarly, yeah, I like the quiet. Just, I
The
like
quiet
being
is
by
so
myself.
nice. Laura, don't you think it's funny that as people who like the quiet, we pick the noisiest professions on the planet?
Do not understand how. Sometimes I think about this. I'm like, why am I in this business? I'm like, how did this happen? Because it's like, no, I kind of hate people. So I can't. Like, I always say that I am an introvert with extrovert tendencies.
Same. I'm a great extrovert. I'm great, but I'm actually an introvert who happens to be a great extrovert. But I know my lane. My lane is like, give me a book, let me research something, let me write something. And then I'm happy to present that in this group and we can riff and be dynamic. But I think also that solitary state that I find so enjoyable actually prepares me to be a great leader or to lead, because you have to know how to make a decision and be confident in the decision. And when you're alone and you make your decision and that's the decision, you don't keep walking it back. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. Even if it's something, simple growing up, I'm going to have a TV dinner and this is the one I'm going to have. Decision made, done. I don't necessarily need input on this decision. And
Mhm.
then when I need input, being able to go get that input or ask for help, but being confident in the decisions that I'm fully equipped to make.
Yeah, you decide and you decided. That's it.
Yeah,
There isn't any walking back.
that's how Versailles came about. I'm making this movie. That is what is happening. Now,
Mhm.
I figure out who's going to be the camera person. I'm going to figure out all the elements to the actual process of making a film. But I have decided that this is the goal, and this is the goal that I'm going to accomplish. The how-tos I had to work on.
Oh, same. I mean, when people always ask me, like, well, Laura, did you like study events? I was like, no. I just was like, I want to make events I want to go to. So I'm going to. There you go. Like 12 years later, here we are. But like, I made a decision. That's it. We're good. And you figure it out. I think that's, it's funny. It's like one of the really kind of beautiful things throughout doing now the fourth year of doing 29 days is that is a theme that is in every episode I've had, where we figure it out. Like, I made a decision. No, I'll just go do it. And somehow, some way, I will make it happen. But thinking about all of that, kind of making it happen, what do you think you'd tell like 18-year-old Deborah?
What I would tell 18-year-old Deborah is really mute everyone telling you what to do and mute people's opinions who have not earned your respect or who've not gone down the path that you choose to go down. Be very judicious in who you let have access to your thoughts and your energy.
It it really is. Like, just cull that stuff down, please. It's really
Yeah.
important.
You can't listen to everybody. A lot of people have a lot to say, but that doesn't mean you should listen to it. And you really have to think for yourself and not let what anyone else does, think, their opinions, their actions get in the way of what's true to you and what you truly want to do and where you truly want to go. And I say that because I remember when I was doing Versailles and I said, I'm going to apply to the Cannes Film Festival. And someone I knew said, oh, dear, you're never going to get in. That's for real filmmakers. It's your first film. Why don't you just apply to like the Macon, Georgia Film Festival? I was like, whoa, okay. So, of course, I did not listen, which is how I ended up at the Cannes Film Festival and the Marché du Film, getting those 4 pages in Women's Wear Daily written by the Paris bureau chief. What if I had actually listened and said, you know what, you're right. This is my first time making a film. Surely it's not going to be good enough. I was like, hell yeah, it's going to be good enough. And if it's not, it's not. But I'm certainly going to give it everything I got.
I love it. It's just like, yeah. Also, why don't you go big? Excuse me, why not? Like, you got to.
Let me dream big. Leave my dream alone. It is on its own path. I am fine.
It's my dream. Back up. Like, no one else can top it.
Don't allow someone, if you're dreaming big, don't allow someone to tell you to dream smaller. You need to have the person around you that tells you to dream bigger. And if they're telling you to dream smaller, like, delete that number from your phone. That is not the message.
Absolutely. It's like, I always say go big or go home.
Go big.
Like, yeah. Like, go big. What the hell not? Like, what have you got to lose? Like, bet on yourself and you'll get there.
And say your dream is astronomical and you only get halfway. It's still going to be fabulous.
Exactly. Like, it doesn't, look, we are all not going to become Beyonce. But
no.
Can you get somewhere which is amazing for you and you never thought you'd be able to get there? I oftentimes look at some of the stuff that I've been able to do over the years. Never in a million years have I thought I could do these things or be in these rooms or with these people. And then when it comes, like, well, of course, so
exactly.
You do have to.
You made such a good point, Laura. The rest of us will never be Beyonce, but that doesn't mean that someone can't sing a song and sing it beautifully. And that will be fulfilling.
It's funny, like I met the Samara Joy, who won Best New Artist.
Oh my gosh, talent.
Unbelievable. I met her like 2 months ago, so before the Grammys. She was at the Blue Note and she's brought the house down. And I got to go backstage and meet her, and she was just a ball of delight and joy. And I remember saying to her, like, "Oh my gosh, I remember us when you we met you then, because like you're just gonna be so absolutely amazing." And she's like, "Oh, she's like, I'm 22 and like I'm from the Bronx." And I'm like, "It don't matter, girl, you got this." Like,
exactly.
And to see that manifest like 6 weeks later. You're like, this is what I'm saying. It's like you never know, but you just have to dream your dreams and take all of the amazing gifts you have and show them and show out about them.
Exactly, and even what I would tell my 18-year-old self, even if you're the only one enjoying it, it's okay, as long as you did your very best. And you are pleased with the turnout and what you achieved, that's fantastic. It doesn't have to be loved and beloved and adored by everyone. That's okay.
It's 100% okay. You know why? It's your thing.
It's exactly. And that's what I've come to learn, not listening. Like even when I'm doing like work in progress screenings and things like that, I have really become really great at screening the feedback, right?
Exactly.
Because some of it is useful and some of it just fills the space. So being able to discern, wow, this is a comment that will help make me better. this is a comment that just keeps me right here. It doesn't advance me, or it doesn't enlighten me to a way to do something differently, or to do something better, or give me a different perspective.
You just gotta do it. And yeah, and I am a firm believer of this about filtering out a lot of the noise, because, you know, it's noise. Like a lot of this stuff is just straight up noise, and it does nothing to benefit you. And, you know, you have to realize that some people are just going to be haters, for example. And some people are projecting their own, you know, insecurities upon you, and that's why they're coming to you with that feedback. And then there are going to be people who like have your back and actually want you to succeed, and so the feedback is valuable. And you've got to be just like how you're discerning with who you let into your circles, the same thing that you're discerning into the criticism that you receive.
Absolutely. So yes, I just, you know, I think that as women, we have to remember our power. And I always remember, as a Black woman born and raised in the South, I very, very quickly remind myself not to bring with me some of the baggage that sometimes, you know, I grew up around and grew up with. That's a part of my lived experience, and it certainly impacts my work, but I don't let it impact my thinking of myself, right? That became really important to me, that to remind myself I am enough and I am great. I am both a work in progress and a masterpiece. And I tell that to myself.
Oh, I love that. Oh, Deborah, you're so wonderful. A work in progress and a masterpiece. If that ain't a word. All right. I can keep talking to you forever. Last question. Do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
An ask of the audience?
An ask or a give. Anyone.
I would ask the audience to go to watch Versailles 73 on Vimeo, since it's the 50th anniversary, and learn that story. That's what I would ask.
I love that. It is such an amazing documentary. I mean, the story is just so phenomenal. You will get so much information about it. If you love anything about fashion, it's such a great story and so amazing. So I will absolutely put that in the show notes and direct people to go do this. Deborah, I can't wait to see the James Brown docuseries. It sounds amazing. You are just phenomenal. It is so amazing to have a Black female director on 29 Days of Magic. And the world is tiny also, as we just learned.
Exactly.
Because of all the things. It's like, it literally is 1 degree of separation for everybody. But it was an absolute pleasure and delight to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing some wonderful wisdom and your experience.
Thank you so very, very much. I am honored to be a part and honored to contribute, you know. And I enjoyed our conversation so much. I can't believe, you know, Chris Royer. That just kind of made my day. So we'll have to chat offline longer, but thank you for having me.
Awesome. We absolutely will. And that is our show.